evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Jennifer Gauthier. I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters Lynchburg, along with my co-president, Jennifer Woofter. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that was founded in 1920 to educate voters and safeguard voting rights. The League of Women Voters Lynchburg was founded in 1958, and we've been engaging in such activities as registering folks to vote and holding forums like this one. I am delighted to welcome you all this evening to the public forum. Tonight, we will hear from candidates for City Council as they introduce themselves to us and answer questions from you all here in the audience. These kinds of forums are a unique opportunity for community members, voters, to observe and interact with candidates outside of the controlled campaign environment. I'd like to now turn it over to this evening's moderator, Nancy McAndrew.
Hi, thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure to see you all. I'd like to take a moment just to outline the format of our evening for you. So each candidate will have 2 minutes to give us an introduction, to introduce yourself, to share your qualifications and your strengths as a candidate, and to describe why you want to be a part of our Lynchburg City Council. After that, we'll pose questions that have been given to us by the audience this evening. Ushers, audience members, please listen up. Ushers will be moving through the audience with note cards and pencils, and you may write your questions for the candidates down and give them to an usher to be given to the screeners. The screeners will check the questions just so we can avoid duplication or questions that are about topics not in the purview of City Council. And questions may be directed to individual candidates or to everybody. Candidates, you will have 1 minute to respond to your question. If you do not use all of your time, then you're welcome to use the rest of your minute to respond to a question that was posed to a different candidate. After our audience questions, you will all have the opportunity to direct a question to a fellow candidate. And at the end, each candidate may give a 2-minute closing statement. In the interest of having as much time as possible to hear from you, we're asking the audience to hold all of their applause until the very end of the event. And we're very happy to have LTV here, who will be recording and capturing this event. It's being live streamed on the city website as well as on Channel 15, and it will be broadcast on Channel 15 periodically between now and the election, and will also be available on the city's YouTube channel under Meetings and Business. So I would like to invite our candidates now to introduce themselves. We'll start down here alphabetically with Mr. Earl.
Hi, I'm Patrick Earl. First of all, thank you all for having me here today. It's a true honor. I've been living in Lynchburg for about 8 years now. I came here with my wife, Stephanie, to teach at Randolph College. I teach part-time. My wife is a tenured professor there. I, for the most part, until recently, have been a stay-at-home dad. I've recently been appointed executive director of End Station Theater Company. And I feel like all of that put together gives me a unique and well-rounded perspective on life in Lynchburg and life in the family and life in around the schools where my children attend. But the reason why I'm running for City Council, speaking of public schools, is our public services. And that goes from public schools to public safety, human resources, public works, parks and rec. But I feel that they all play an essential role in our community. And the hard workers of those institutions deserve to feel supported and funded. And I think these programs need to be fully funded and fully staffed, because I believe that these institutions is the peace of mind that the city provides its citizens. And not only that, but the peace of mind that through our taxes we provide for each other. It is our civic agreement. Now, I believe we are headed in the right direction. For the first time, all the full-time city employees are making a living wage. We're breaking ground this fall on a new police headquarters. But I feel like we can do more because we need to make these jobs enticing and desirable to make Lynchburg a more enticing and desirable place to stay. And not only this, but it will also give us the resources to help those who deserve a well-deserved leg up, whether it is housing assistance, childcare, healthcare, a great education, and so on. Because everyone deserves to feel safe in their city, and everyone deserves to have their fair share of what this city has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Reed. I'm a wife and mother of 4 boys. My husband is a retired Air Force colonel. He served 25 years in the Air Force. We spent 18 of those years raising our 4 boys around the world. And honestly, his commitment to service is what really inspired me to want to serve. So when we came and planted our roots here in Lynchburg, my original why was because I want to serve the people. I want to copy what my husband did and try to give back to a community. But in the last 4 months, I've been door knocking all over the city. And I've met with mothers who are frustrated about their children's education. I met with families who were nervous about the gunshots and the gun violence that we're experiencing here in Lynchburg. I've met with small business owners who are struggling to recover from loss of sales during the pandemic. I've met with community members who are struggling with the concern of homelessness and the needs within our community with poverty and children who aren't getting their needs met at school. So what my why has become is every person in here. Every person in here is my why. Your children are the why I want to serve Lynchburg. Your aging parents and the people on fixed incomes here in Lynchburg are my why. The safety of our families so we can enjoy this beautiful city is my why. You are my why, and I would be honored to be able to serve all of you on the Lynchburg City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
Praise the Lord. How's everybody this evening? I just thank the good Lord for the opportunity to be here this evening. And my why is representation. As I walk the streets, talk to neighbors and all, they say, who are representing us on city council? Who is my representative? And I want to represent those people that's not being represented. We get some dictates that do not apply to everybody in the city, and we need to stop it. Everybody needs to be treated the same in Lynchburg, and I'm the one to make sure everybody is treated the same. That's my why.
Thank you. Ms. Tweedy?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Dr. Trinae Tweedy, native Lynchburger, grew up in Rivermont, attended LCS, graduated from E.C. Glass High School, University of Lynchburg, and Virginia University of Lynchburg. I serve the community now as an at-large city council member. I serve all of you right now for 8 years and a member of LCS School Board. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Navy, a shipboard journalist. I served aboard the USS Samuel Gompers, mother of 3 adult children, LCS graduates, all attended Heritage High School. I'm a grandmother, soon to be, of 6 grandsons.
That's good. You look great.
Thank you. I'm a small business owner, Trinae Tweedy Consulting Services, managing communications, marketing, public relations, and Marry Me on Main. My top priorities, you want to know, are quality education, economic growth, public safety, safe neighborhoods, and public services, which I believe are all related and connected. I want to continue to represent you, your voice, and your concerns on Lynchburg City Council. I believe in resolving issues, solving problems, and doing the work that I've been doing, and others, my colleagues, to continue making Lynchburg a great place to live and do business. I'm not a soundbite. So if you came here for a soundbite, that's not me. I'm a proven leader through crisis and good times, challenges, and successes. Leading through an unprecedented 100-year pandemic and other national challenges, the comeback is that we link up, collaborate, and come through together. That's why all of us are sitting here tonight. My why? I believe in transparency in government is crucial, which is why I'm here today, this evening, to tell you everything my opponents won't say or don't know to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Virgil?
Awesome. Yeah, I like all of that. My name is Walter Virgil, and before I say anything else, I just want to thank my wife publicly for just standing with me throughout this whole journey. Just working hard day and night just to be able to serve the people of the city of Lynchburg. as well as my son DJ, who's 6 years old, who attends Bedford Hills Elementary, as well as my daughter Joya, who's 7 months old. I think the reality is that when you're talking about taking this type of step and serving, it's not just a commitment that an individual is making. It's a commitment that their family is making. And the only reason why that I'm running is because I have that level of support, and my wife has been to every single event that we've had. And that level of backing is reflective of what I've experienced from the various members of our collective community. I realized that my 14 years of service here in the city of Lynchburg have afforded me a unique and a vast opportunity to be able to serve the many different individuals from all of the different pockets of this great community that we call Lynchburg City. And starting from the James Crossing community, where I operated as residential service coordinator, essentially being able to build bridges between the people in that community and the resources that were in the city that they weren't even aware of. And even when they came in contact with them, they didn't even know how to engage them. So streamlining those systems really catapulted me into another place where I recognized that I had a unique skill set to be able to bridge gaps between people and resources. That transcended into my administration as Director of Progressive Release with Interfaith Outreach Association, implementing programs into both Amherst County and Lynchburg City jails for both men and women. From there, we had awesome opportunities to be able to serve in various capacities, and with all of that knowledge and that skill set, it has equipped me to be able to bring collaborative leadership to get things done here in the city of Lynchburg. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
Well, thank you and good evening, and thanks very much to the League of Women Voters for having us this evening. It's an honor to be here with my fellow candidates, and to all of you for being here as well. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. I'm from Lynchburg. My name is Bo Wright. I'm from Lynchburg. I grew up here. I'm a third-generation Lynchburg City Schools graduate. Go Hilltoppers. Also go Pioneers. We love them too. For the past 4 years, I've served on Lynchburg City Council as an at-large member, and for the last 2 as vice mayor. And in that time, we've actually been able to accomplish a lot despite the challenges of COVID and the economic recession. We have boosted police and teacher pay, and I'm honored to have received both the endorsement from the Lynchburg Education Association, which represents Lynchburg City School teachers and staff, along with the Police Benevolent Association's endorsement. They represent members of our law enforcement community and emergency services. We boosted police and teacher pay. We have made long overdue investments in critical infrastructure, the Lakeside Bridge and Dam removal project, which has been many years in the making, along with the Lynchburg Police Department headquarters, which is also now 30 years in the making, but we're actually doing it. We're actually making it happen. We've also fought for Lynchburg that's more inclusive and welcoming for everybody. We have protected public education funding, which I think is really important. I'm running for two reasons. I'm running, firstly, because I believe that Lynchburg's best days are ahead. I really believe that. But I think in order to get there, we need to keep making smart, thoughtful investments in public education, our infrastructure, our economic development, in our neighborhoods, in public safety. So we need to be really thoughtful about it. And the second reason I'm running is because we need to keep issues here, and we need to focus on Lynchburg. There's a lot of pressure right now to make it all about national politics, all right? But what I care about are our potholes, our clean water, our safe streets, our quality schools. That's why I'm running.
Mr. Misson, Jens.
Thank you, ma'am. You guys hear me? Everybody hear me? Okay, great. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Marty Mischens. I'm not here because of me. I'm not here to sell you on me per se. I'm here because of you. I can't echo enough what Stephanie said and then what Larry said about representation. I'm here for you. I'm here because of you. There's challenges in our city. We all know that. You all know that. Taxes are too high. The inflation is killing your wallets. Our citizens aren't safe. Crime is on the rise. We had 9 homicides last year. We've had 6 already this year. We had a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old shot this year. That is completely unacceptable, and it's not something I will stand for in this city. And our schools aren't listening to parents or teachers. And I would challenge the incumbents, and I'm going to say this right here and right now. If they were concerned about the schools listening to parents, well, then they would have called for what I'm going to call for on day one, is that we make our school board in Lynchburg an elected school board. because I believe that you are smart enough to choose your leaders. And I believe that you are smart enough to choose the people that run your public schools and run your local government. And I believe in you. I believe in you. I serve an almighty God. I have an amazing wife who's a teacher in Lynchburg City Schools. I have 4 wonderful boys. I'm concerned about their future. I'm concerned about your children's future. And that's why I'm here. I served with the Lynchburg Fire Department for almost 15 years. I was a fire captain and a paramedic when I left. And I'm also a retired Coast Guard Chief Petty Officer with 22 years in service. I know what it means to serve the public. I know what it means to fight. I know what it means to grind. I know what it means to get down, to work, and get dirty with all of you. I'm here for you, and I look forward to seeing what happens on November 8th. Thank you, and I thank you for being here.
Thank you. I should have mentioned this ahead of time, and I apologize. Our timers are here, and they'll hold up a yellow card when you're closing in on your time to stop will be the red card. The red card, then I'll interrupt you, and I don't like interrupting people, so I would love it if you didn't put me in that position. Anyway, so pay attention to the stop signs over here. All right, we're going to start with some of the community questions. This is a question for all of the candidates, and we'll just skip around. I'll just call on you, okay? What do you see as the biggest challenge facing our city, and what is one specific action that you would take to address it if you were elected to City Council? Mr. Wright, would you like to begin?
Yes. I think Lynchburg has a handful of, I think, really challenging issues, but probably foremost among them is a lack of affordable housing. We are down several thousand affordable housing units. We just don't have enough places for people to live. And our population is expected to grow by another 10,000 within the next 10 years. We're expected to be at 100,000 within the next 20 years. And so where are these folks going to live? And so I think we have a real challenge in front of us about how we incentivize public housing and affordable housing in Lynchburg. And we're already seeing actually a lot of action on this front. We're seeing Rush Homes is developing Florida Terrace. There's more money going into some other, like Deerington, for example. But I think we need to keep it up. We need to keep working on this, and we need to keep building partnerships across the community, because this is a real problem, and it's heading straight at us.
Ms. Reed, would you like to answer the question?
Yes, thank you. My biggest concern right now is our public safety. I've spent the last few months talking to the leaders of our fire departments, our chief of police, community members who are concerned about what's happening. We've had a double-digit deficit in our police and fire departments for several years now. Also, our 911 call center. So, and also, something people probably don't know is that we haven't even been annexed as a city since 1974. So currently, our city is run on the same number of fire engines today that we had in 1974. That's a concern. And what we're seeing right now with the rise in crime, I believe, is the same thing that we see as parents when our kids don't think we're looking. They get into more trouble. I think that there are people in our community, unfortunately, that are up to no good because they are aware that we are in a shortage in our police department, specifically.
Ms. Tweedy?
Thank you. I do see also public safety as being a huge concern, because you can't live in the neighborhood in the affordable housing and in your homes. You can't send your children to school if they're dodging bullets. So we have done our part in increasing the officer pay. We have done our part in helping officers do their jobs, their mental health, that they can go out and protect our communities. I want to go a little bit further and challenge people to think on another level about prosecutions. So in our community, if we are still letting people come out who have committed low-level crimes and not prosecuting them, then what are we leaving our community to? And so that goes beyond the police department. We've appropriated funding to our Commonwealth's Attorney Office, who says it's not enough. But how much is enough when you have $260,000 salaries for one person? What is enough? And where does the strategy come in? And so I am for looking at a more comprehensive look at our public safety, not just blaming the officers, not just saying council has not appointed, but what's the final outcome for people when they do commit crimes? And I have a document here that says, oh, well, let's blame the community because more blacks are committing crimes, and it is the community who needs to say something from the Commonwealth's Attorney Office. I like her, but I want more answers.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, would you like to answer the question?
Yes, public safety, number one. I live in White Rock Hill. That neighborhood is crime-ridden. Gang members, they're comfortable. We have to make them uncomfortable. And when you make them uncomfortable, they leave. So our police department need to be on top of them. We can't pacify them. They commit crimes, get out of jail the next day, and right back in the same spot. I've seen it. Doing their business. And I hear shots. I hear shots in my bedroom all the time. Do y'all hear shots in your bedroom all the time? I do. It needs to stop, and it's been going on too long. Public safety, number one.
Mr. Mischins?
So we've heard a lot about public safety, and I'm going to echo on some of the comments that were made. But one of the things I'm going to point out is we've got two incumbents up here that actually supported a budget where the Commonwealth's attorney requested an additional prosecutor funded by local funds, and she didn't get it. So yes, she did come out and say that there's certain low-level crimes she's not going to be prosecuting, but she did ask for that funding in the budget, and it was denied by our current city council. So we need to look at public safety as a whole in its entirety, and we need to make sure that we have all the resources funded we need to keep our citizens safe.
Thank you. And Mr. Earl?
Yeah, I think one of our biggest challenges is our public schools. But I want to take a different take on this because the SOL scores came out and everyone was freaking out, okay? But I feel like we should all take a step back and say this is coming out of a pandemic, okay? And as a whole, I'm looking at the SOL scores right now, from 2020-21 to 2021 to 22, the vast majority of those scores are up. I think the real problem is, and if you can look at these scores right now, the real problem is the economical disadvantaged. They're the ones bringing our scores down. And here's the thing. You can't learn if you're not provided for. You can't learn if you're hungry. You cannot learn if you're in emotional distress. So what I think we need to do is take a step back and look at the mental health and how we can take care of the mental health of not just our students, but also our teachers. And I think we will see an even larger improvement next year.
Thank you. And Mr. Virgil?
Definitely, it would be most appropriate to echo everybody's concern with the prioritization of public safety and those services that are connected to that. And the reality is a lot of that is reactive. When we begin to talk about taking a more proactive approach, that means an investment within education. There's a number that I'm going to continue to ring out every time I have an opportunity to speak, and that's this: 70% of young males in America that don't receive a high school equivalency will wind up in the penal system before they're 35 years old. And if we begin to pay attention to that, we begin to understand that observing what we're doing within our education system is so important. And I know that everybody's real quick to point the finger to the board. But my challenge is to the community. We realize that there's a certain issue when it comes to parental engagement, that there's a certain issue that comes about when we talk about measuring proficiency that deals with the presentation of concepts, and we need to start talking concept mastery.
I have to stop you.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, our next question is again for everybody, and I'd like to just start at this end and go down the line this time. What would you say are the relative merits and drawbacks to an appointed versus an elected school board?
Well, I mean, that's simple. You either value the voice of the people or you don't. You either want to listen to the constituents and the citizens or you don't. And I believe that we should listen to the citizens and we should listen to the constituents. And I believe that you are all smart enough to pick your school board leaders. It shouldn't be a club. It should be the best people for the job that go out and work hard and campaign for merit to earn their position on the school board.
Thank you. Mr. Wright?
Thank you very much. I mean, I think there are good arguments on either side. I mean, understanding that some folks want to be able to directly, elect their school board representatives, that's understandable. That we have an appointment process here, I think that also has delivered really strong school boards. And frankly, right now, we have an ideologically diverse school board. They do not agree on everything. Dr. Coleman is sitting right here. He's nodding along. They don't agree on everything, and that's a good thing. So, I mean, I talk to folks on city councils around the state, and they will say school boards, when they're elected, it's a mixed bag because the incentive structure changes for what, because they become politicians. They become politicians, and they're trying to, look, we look around the country, we see what's happening with school boards, right? It's all about national political culture war stuff. And we've managed to keep that out here, I think, in part because we don't have an elected school board.
Mr. Virgil?
Due to the fact that there is an argument on both ends, I believe that when we talk about now having to get involved with an electoral process, we're now talking about a certain quality of individual that's going to begin to surface. We begin to talk about just the reality of it. I know that me just running for office right now, the election process has the ability to choke out the will to actually serve out of a good person who's coming into a process that really wants to do it for all the right reasons. But when you have to play the game of politics, that can really choke out that desire to really serve. But also at the same time, when we talk about appointment, that responsibility now falls on the people to present high quality individuals that can actually do the work. And so I really see that, the process has performed well for us, especially throughout this last go-round. And so I believe that the people have the ability to present quality individuals.
Thank you. Ms. Tweedy?
Thank you. School boards should and do matter to all. Representation of all matters. When you have a school board member who has to campaign to get into the seat and then has to cater to certain constituencies, we've seen this process. It's called pandemic divisiveness. And when you have people who want to get extreme on one or other sides and don't understand that education should be apolitical, there should be a neutral platform, and the appointment process allows that because it enables everyone to have consideration through application process, a consistent process, and the blending of a board that represents and looks like the community it serves. And that's what matters when you talk about a traditionally appointed versus an elected school board.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor?
I think the school board should be elected. That way the citizens decide who is representing their children. It's just not hand-picked people placed in a position. The citizens make that choice.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
I agree, and there can be pros and cons to both sides, and I think it can be political on both sides. I think an appointed school board can absolutely reflect political opinions depending on who's appointing, and then people that are running for the offices can also make it political. But I do think that there's a better level of accountability if you are running for a position, because you have to prove to people, just like we're having to do right now, that they're worthy of representing them, whether it's on the school board or here on the city council. So I think that the accountability factor would be where I would be more supportive of an elected school board.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
I think this is a very divisive issue. I've heard people on the right, people on the left, people in the middle say all different things. And I think it has to go specifically and make that decision for each community. And all I'd have to say is there's what? 60, 70, 80 grand worth of money just up here? Don't you think that could be spent on something else, on the kids, rather than, just think about how much money is poured into politics. That, to me, is a big tell. Because if you have money, you also, and that is poured into an election, what you also have are people with the money making all of the decisions. And that in and of itself, you lose diversity.
Thank you. I'll remind our audience to hold their applause till the end, please. This question is for Mr. Mistrins and Ms. Reed. You have, I'm going to start over. You have a stated goal to reduce taxes while preserving the city's core services. Could you tell us about your plan to do that? What services would you eliminate to accomplish your goal? Let's start with you.
We don't need to eliminate any services to accomplish that goal. Last year there was a budgeted unassigned fund balance. It was supposed to be $22 million. It ended up being $49 million. That means there was an additional $27 million tax dollars that were taken from you on top of what they planned for. And if you break that down, that comes out to about $1,000 per household in Lynchburg. That's what that equals roughly. It's like 900 and some change. So we don't need to reduce services to cut taxes. We need to spend smarter, and we need to look at how we're budgeting and make sure that we're following a tight budget and holding our staff accountable to do that, because your dollars are important. Your wallet is important to me. Your wallet, the citizen's wallet.
Thank you, Ms. Reed.
So I was at the city council meeting last year when the vote came up to raise the real estate taxes. And I sat right over there as I saw, I want to say roughly 40 to 50 people come in this room, along with emails and calls or whatever came in. And I want to use the word beg because I heard people beg. I heard people beg not to have their taxes raised. People on fixed incomes, single mothers, elderly citizens, people that had to quit jobs to stay home with their children because of the pandemic, begging, saying things like, I don't have $50 more to spend right now. Please don't do this. Yet, it was voted to raise the taxes after everybody left behind closed doors. And then, as Mr. Mission said, we ended the fiscal year with $50 million. It did not go back to the people. That proves to me we never needed to raise those taxes. So like he said, we don't need to lower them. We just need to be smarter with the money.
This question is for Mr. Taylor. In a recent forum, you stated that you would bring a grocery store to White Rock, to the White Rock neighborhood. What steps would you take to do that?
Let me get on council first. I will meet with Kroger's, Food Line, property owners. We could acquire some property and put a store in White Rock Hill.
If you do not use your full minute under your next question, then you can answer it.
I just want to point out that the current city council oversaw the Bedford Avenue, what's that?
Are you waiving your right to answer the next question by answering now?
Yeah, just give me whatever the time balance is.
Okay.
Bedford Avenue Food Line closed under the current city council. There was also hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars poured into a grocery street on Main Street that was only open for several months under the current city council.
Thank you.
Can everyone answer that question?
Sure. Let's make it a group question. Why not? Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Nobody has to forego any time. It's a good topic. Ms. Tweedy?
The White Rock grocery store, I will say there's a Food Line 2 miles up. Everyone wants a grocery store nearby. Everyone wants a community grocery store. But I will tell you, grocery stores, Kroger's, it has been talked to and tried. Walmart neighborhood stores, it has been talked to and tried. They are about the bottom line of numbers. If they can make a profit, slight, they will come in. But if not, they can't. That's the reason why. How many of you remember Amazing Grace, Reverend Linthicum, who met for 2 years to try to get a grocery store in White Rock? Bridges to Progress has met for over 2 years to try to get a grocery store in White Rock. Rivermont has to go 5 miles either way to a grocery store. So this is the part that I'm here for, to tell you what they won't say.
Mr. Earl, would you care to respond to that question?
I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Wright?
Yes, I would. I would like to point out, they say you can't, you don't have to cut any services. Well, let me tell you something. You do have to cut services, all right? That surplus that they talk about, that was all one-time money. We get that once. And a lot of that was federal money that had strings attached to it, all right? And so when they say we don't have to cut services, that's not true. That's misleading. We do have to cut something. The bill will come due, all right? And we're going to have to pay. So, and my friend here mentions about the, this grocery store on Main Street being a big boondoggle. Well, here's the thing. City Council wasn't involved in that. That was the Economic Development Authority that we don't oversee. So, I'm all for saying the facts. It's true that thing didn't go well. All right, but let's be honest about the facts and not try to mislead people.
Oh, audience, let's make sure we have time for everybody. Mr. Virgil, would you care to answer?
Yeah, it's getting a little steamy up here. Yeah. No, I think it's important. I think it's important that we have individuals that are serving that are passionate, and that they have the ability to be able to express that passion while being respectful. And I think that's the most important thing that I think the people of the city want to start seeing more of here in this chamber. And that's what I really feel like I have a unique ability to be able to bring that type of dynamic, because it's a piece to this greater puzzle. Now, when we begin to talk about a grocery store, that might not be the most feasible component, but we got to get down to what's the objective of us wanting to get that in there. And we're talking about the reality that it's a food desert, and that we know that those marts that are currently in there are not pushing fresh produce. And we realize that if we're going to see the quality of life and the individuals there increase, they need to have access to fresh produce. There's unique opportunities for collaboration with a nonprofit like a Lynchburg Grows to be able to do some innovative things within that community that reflect what we saw and what I communicated through the Gorilla Gardener based out of Compton and what he's done with vacant lots.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
I'm a big supporter of locally owned businesses. And while it's true, there's several of us up here that don't know all the stats and data that has led up to this time and what's been tried before, there's always new perspective. Fresh perspective is never a bad thing. And if there's a way that we can meet the needs of the people, and right now that's a grocery store in White Rock, then I would vow to the people to make it an effort of mine to figure out a way to help that happen, if it's possible. If it's not possible, then you say, hey, we tried. But I think at least it's worth it, the effort, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for a community question. All right, this is for all the candidates. What is your position regarding the removal of books from schools and our public libraries? Let's just start at this end and move down.
Well, I think historically we've been down that road before. And there were bonfires, and there was ignorance, and I think people need to take a step back and say, is this book offensive to me, or is it offensive to everyone? Because to rob someone of the right to have knowledge, to learn, just because you don't agree with the message that's being told, does not give you the right to take that message and take that learning away from them.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
An interesting question. As a parent who has been very involved in my children's education and paying attention to what they've brought home and books that I've read with them and finding out what book reports they're writing and learning about what they're learning about, my question is, what is appropriate for a school book or library to have? We can go to bookstores anywhere in the city. You can get online and order books that you might have curiosities about that have some questionable subject matter. But what's appropriate for the school to be providing for all of the children? Because not everybody has a parent at home who can sift through what they're reading and make a decision if that's appropriate for their child. So I think that's something we have to consider.
Mr. Taylor?
Books are good. Certain books not for little children. If the library has sections just for little children books ought to be there. If they have a section for adults, adults go there and check out whatever they want to check out. But little children is different. I have 6 grandchildren. I have 3 great-grandboys and 6 children of my own. I was able to read to them and explain to them things that they need to know. Parents ought to be teaching children. You go to the library with your children, get what they need, their age level. But books are good. I'm reading a good one right now. The Iron Triangle. Everybody ought to read it.
Thank you. Ms. Tweedy?
Books are great. Once you start censorship, which moves the removal of history, accurate and inclusive. Censorship can remove civil rights and personal rights. There is a process in place of approving books for appropriate age groups in the school system. The system has operated for a number of years. There is parental engagement in that process. There is an ability to opt out of books that parents don't want their children to study, read, and or have access to. So I think when you start censorship, you start censoring a community, and that is a dangerous road to go down.
Thank you. Mr. Virgil?
Books are important. We learn that when young people have access to books, to touch them, to feel them, to know which way to position them in order to open them in the direction in which they're supposed to go through those books. All of those different things are so important to early childhood development. But I know that we're really not talking about books. We're talking about specific subject matter that's problematic. And so the question is, who's the governing body that's responsible for censoring? Because that's a whole nother conversation and a whole bunch of thread of questioning that now leads us down a really interesting path. And so the question is really not about books. Yeah, I'll leave it alone.
Mr. Wright?
I think Dr. Tweedy said it perfectly. There's an established process for how to make sure that books in our schools are age appropriate. And I also agree. It does go down, he said, Mr. Virgil said an interesting path, but I think it goes down a dark path. That's not, look, as far as I'm concerned, we live in the United States of America, and I'm not for banning books.
I'm going to echo that I'm not for banning books. I fully support that we should have books in our school libraries and our public libraries, and we shouldn't restrict any book from being there. However, we should have the controls in place to make sure the right books get into the right hands. And when we have school teachers that are assigning books that can't be read in a school board meeting because of the profanity, that's a problem. If these books contain elements that would make a movie rated R, where a child wouldn't be able to purchase that ticket without a parent, right? Those books shouldn't be handed out in assignments in our high schools. And just earlier this year, we had a parent try to read excerpts from one of those books that was assigned at Eastie Glass High School for a project, and he was shut down for being able to continue reading his comments because of the profanity in that book.
Let's switch gears. This is for everybody. Lynchburg, like every other city, is not isolated from the effects of climate change. What do you see as the city's biggest climate-related challenge, and what steps should this city take to meet them? Let's start in the middle and we'll go out. Dr. Tweedy?
I believe heat is an issue for everyone. And so I think we need to start looking at how we are constructing our buildings. Are we doing LEED certifications, which help with climate, which help with utilities and the structures and the cooling of our schools and our systems? I think that we have to look at what we are spending in our buildings, our city buildings, as far as utilities, and are we making them LEED certified best practices so that we can save on utilities, saving taxpayer dollars. We also have the opportunity in the next several years to look at our school system and the number of buildings we have there. So I think we have to look at, one, heat is always an issue, and you have to have seniors and others who can get in out of the heat. So do we have everyone with cooling systems and the systems that are needed? So that's one of the issues.
Mr. Virgil?
I think that I kind of have a unique edge because my wife, she's actually director of HR for a solar energy company, and I'm always looking at efficiency. I'm looking at energy. I'm looking at how efficient are the facilities that we have here, homes. What type of access do individuals have to energy outside of the mainstream? There's so many individuals that I talk to that have been seeing spikes in their utility bills. And if we had a certain level of access to different forms of energy, especially solar, how that can really do some interesting things. There's community projects that are available in different states where there's community solar. where a centralized location can have panels set up, and the energy that they generate there can be dispersed within low to moderate communities, offsetting utility bills by 40 to 50%.
Mr. Wright.
Thank you. I think this is such an important conversation. It's known that Lynchburg, if trends hold true, Lynchburg's climate in about 2060, 2070 will be what it's like right now on the Florida Panhandle. That's the kind of heat that we can expect in Lynchburg within the next 50 years, which is obviously going to change everything, right? I mean, what works well in Florida and how they've planned for that might not work well for Lynchburg, right? So we have a lot of, I think, work to do, and it's doing a lot of what Dr. Tweedy talked about. It's making sure that we're retrofitting our building and making them as energy efficient as possible. And it's really baking climate change mitigation into how we do business as a city, right? I mean, the city is just one big company. We're the city council is the board of directors. We're 1,300 people. Right? And so we have to make sure that climate change mitigation factors into all of our plans and do so in a cost-effective way.
So we've got a lot of really bright people in the city. We're home to 2 amazing nuclear companies, which is the cleanest and most efficient power you can get out there, right? So we just need to get together with the minds in our city and figure those challenges out. I don't have any issue at all trying to figure out how to make our city more efficient. Who loves to open their electric bill these days? I know I don't, right? So we just need to continue going down the path of making our city more efficient. We should be doing a cost-benefit analysis on every tax dollar we spend and make sure we get the best return on investment for our citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
Amazing. It sounds like we're all in a consensus that climate change is a real issue. But like the other candidates have said, this is a multifaceted issue, but I'm not going to touch on the mitigation part, but I want to touch on something that is super important. A lot of people don't want to make changes into renewable energy because, oh, it'll cost too much money, or hey, we're going to have to change the grid. But this conversation highlights who this climate change is going to affect the most. And that is the poor, because they're not going to be able to afford solar panels, and pretty soon they're not going to be able to afford their electric bill. So as we look ahead in making our city more efficient, we are also going to have to help those underprivileged that might need help catching up.
I think that, we have some brilliant minds in this city that already have made some good strides on how to kind of figure out what direction to go in helping us deal with this problem. We again, want to do it in an efficient way. I will stand in line with everybody else that wants to have a cheaper electric bill, I promise. And I think there's some really cool things I've seen in other cities that are effective. I think I think we're kind of on the right path. But I agree with Mr. Earl here that my heart is burdened for the parts of the city that cannot necessarily afford to make some of these changes, and that we will absolutely have to consider how to help to step in there.
Yes, I consider solar on my house. I got an estimate. They wanted $55,000 to install solar on my house. Whereas I don't believe in climate change like most people, but I know climates change. But we have to make it affordable for people that can't afford it. $50,000 on my roof in White Rock Hill is not acceptable.
Did you have a response?
Thank you. I just wanted to add also my concern, and it may be linked to climate change or not, is water. My concern is the cleanliness of our water, the availability of our water, and the mandates and the work that we've done as a city to ensure that all of our citizens have clean water nearing the end of one project, but also understanding that our tax dollars and our taxes, as people say, and the money that citizens pay, it's to help us have clean water as well.
All right, so
Just as a point of just clarification, the program that I brought everybody's attention to is a solar energy project where the funding is actually directly connected to a nonprofit initiative where the cost for the installation is actually worked out by the developers, and that the funneling of the energy gets to the low to moderate income houses at no cost to them. They just have to subscribe for the program. I just wanted that to be clear.
Thank you. In the interest of fairness, does anybody else have a follow-up comment? Okay. And this is a question for everybody. What is the role of compromise for elected officials? Let's start with you, Mr. Taylor.
Where would I compromise on what?
What do you think is the role of compromise?
We can come to agreement for the citizens in most things. It would be good.
All right.
It's
Mr.
about
Reed?
the citizens. It's about the citizens. It's not about me. It's about the citizens. We have to represent the citizens, and if we can get our citizens satisfied from the lowest to the greatest, we have accomplished something.
Mr. Reed, what do you think is the role of compromise?
It's everything. When I've been knocking doors and I talk to people, sometimes people are a little hesitant to open the door, not sure if I'm trying to sell them knives or convert their religion, but I tell them I'm just here running for office. And but we talk about the divisiveness in the political arena right now. And I've said, and I'll say it to you, if someone on council has an excellent idea that is beneficial to our community, that makes sense, that we can afford to do, that was well thought out, I don't care whose idea it is. I'm going to vote for it because that's what I'm being elected to do. I'm being elected to represent every voice in this city and to not get up here and grandstand and have theatrics. We can all do that in some theatrical productions around town. I'm here to vote on behalf of the citizens and compromise like an adult.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
Thank you for the shameless plug. I hate to turn the question around on people, but I don't like the word compromise because that is already an adversarial word. I prefer collaboration because ideally you are going to find answers to challenges that as many people as possible can be happy with. Okay? Take, for instance, our school facilities report that came out. Now that is, like I said in the stump speech, that is an onion with a ton of controversial and difficult layers, all right? The more you peel back, the more difficult it gets. And you're gonna want people on city council that can work with other city council members, LCS, the school board, the teachers, the students, and all have the optimism, right, to come up with a solution that can benefit every Lynchburg child, regardless of zip code.
Mr. Mischens?
I think it's very important that we're able to build consensus. We've got a lot of challenges in our city, and we've got to solve those. We've got to solve the problem with crime. It's not going to be one mind that comes up with that solution. We've got to solve the problem with our taxes. They're way too high. It's not going to be just one mind that comes up with that solution. And we have to solve the problem with our schools. Again, it's not going to be just one mind that comes up with that. So we're going to need to come to consensus together to solve these problems because our city and our citizens are facing these challenges. And we don't have a choice but to come together and get to work for them.
Mr. Wright?
Oh, I think compromise is essential, and I think Ms. Reed said it exactly right, so I don't have any more to add to that.
Okay. Mr. Virgil?
I think at the end, the reason why that question is so important is because we as a city, we've been concerned about the level of ego that's displayed from time to time and the inability to be able to see outside of the fog that creates. And I think that individuals want to know that we have the ability to operate in humility and the ability to listen outside of our own grand ideas and realize that there might be an opportunity for us to be able to effectively collaborate along those lines and realize what's in the best interest of the people here in the city. And is it possible that my ego is getting in the way of making an effective choice that can serve the people well?
Thank you. Dr. Tweedy?
Thank you. I think we do collaborate. It's the collaboration that you don't hear about but it's the collaboration that supports your wallets. So when you look at your personal property taxes, this council, the current council that my incumbent and I serve on, gave households 50,000 cars in Lynchburg $115 rebate for up to 2 cars. We also gave a personal property tax rebate that you won't hear about. And that we gave to about all the households that pay personal property taxes. But let me give you what the detail of the numbers are. 30,000 homes are valued at $100,000 to $150,000 in this city. If you fall above that, you're going to get a greater rebate. If you fall below that, you're going to get a lower rebate. And so people get rebates, but who gets the greater? Is it helping 50,000 cars, families across the city who own cars and may not own a home? Or is it helping the 30,000 that will only get the middle amount? Others get greater, some get less. We help to do both as a city council in this current budget year.
All right, our next question is for everybody. What would you say are our city's greatest strengths? Let's start with Mr. Wright.
Start with me? No. I mean, look, Lynchburg is really blessed, right? We live in a really wonderful place. We've got an incredible diversity of people. We've got a dynamic local economy, and we have got, 4 large institutions of higher learning, an incredible healthcare system. We live in a beautiful place. And, if you meet people in Lynchburg, and if you know us, you know that we have a lot of heart. Lynchburg is a volunteerism community. So I think we have just a tremendous amount of strengths. The other year, I decided to run every street in town. I gave myself like a little challenge to do every street and ran about 600 miles, seeing every neighborhood, every house, every church, every business that we have here in this community. And I fell in love with Lynchburg all over again. We live in an incredible space, an incredible place, and I'm proud to be from here.
Dr. Tweedy?
The quality of life, the people, the fact that you can come here, new college students, start a business, the fact that you can have businesses that invest because they see the quality of life for the families they have, $147 million of investment in this city over the past several COVID years and before. An education system that has always been strong, has always graduated students that went to Ivy League, private, local community colleges. I've never seen a local community college that turned down one of our Lynchburg City public school students. If you have it, you tell me. We have a quality of life here that people want to live. They come. That's why we're growing. That's why we have the issues of public services that we need more for. That's why we have more roads that are being built for subdivisions and homes. And we need to work together, come together. A lot of decision-making has been put into the quality of life. That's why people relocate here. Ms. Reed said herself, they chose to live here in Lynchburg. That means it was great before she got here. So that means that you came to a quality of life that others want and the local citizens deserve.
Ms. Reed?
You're right. We have lived. Thank you. We could have lived in any city in the world, literally. We lived in 4 countries. And we came up here when our first started college, and we were just charmed by the beauty of the city, of the region, the people so kind, just the opportunity. And I think sometimes people misconstrue that we're up here bashing the city, which is why we're running for office. I'm not bashing anything. Y'all are beautiful. The city's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with wanting better than what we have. Nobody can sit up here and say that the city's perfect. So yes, it was definitely enchanting enough for me to want to come here and plant my roots here. And I would just love to get on this ride with the rest of you and see where we can go.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to echo a lot of people, but I think it's our population and our spirit. I've lived all around the country, big and small towns, Houston, Texas, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Stanton, Virginia, and I've never felt more welcome than I have here. That's across the board. We as great people. But I also think, just statistically speaking, I found out the other day that we are in the top 10 cities in the United States with the youngest median age. It's around 28, give or take a few percentage points. That means people want to live here, right? They're moving here because, like Councilmember Tweedy said, the quality of life is great. We can make some improvements, but these aren't problems that aren't happening everywhere else.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor.
I came to Lynchburg 34 years ago. There was opportunity. I was able to start a business here, support my family, and still operate my business here. So opportunity is great in Lynchburg, but you have to have a desire to get out and do it. Search it out, and you can make a living here. You can pay your taxes, and you can be secure in your neighborhood if you make it that way. Opportunity.
I came to this city as a 23-year-old college dropout, living out of my car for about 8 months, and I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was surrounded by a community full of individuals that saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. And they gave me opportunities, and I was blessed and fortunate enough to step up to the plate, and I wasn't left to figure it out on my own. I made my way over to the James Crossing community and begun to get active. And I was able to experience the encouragement of a lot of people here in this room, even this young lady next to me right here, that realized that I was signing up to do something that was challenging, but in a place and it was worth it. And individuals like her and Pat Price made investments in me and so many others. And so now I can actually be here and really be a contender for city council. I think that's what's so beautiful about this place, and I feel obligated to serve it.
Thank you. Mr. Mischens?
There's a lot, right? First thing is all of you. All of you are the strength of our city, each and every one of you in this room. You care enough to be here and listen to these questions and our answers, and you're concerned about the issues. Thank you. But overall, it's the people of this city. And then after that, it's the beautiful setting that we're in. I mean, how many more places can you go where you have a beautiful river in the mountains, beautiful downtown, and everything we have here in the city? That's what I think the strengths of our city are.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I know that we want to give you all the opportunity to ask a question of a fellow candidate. If that goes swiftly and we have more time, we can go back to the rest of these community questions. But Ms. Reed, we haven't begun with you yet. Would you like to start off the candidate questioning each other section of our forum?
Actually, I wanted to yield my time here because I can find out about these people anytime I want, probably, and they're easily accessible. I was really here to hear from you and to find out what you want to know about me and how I can serve the community. I hope that in the few seconds I have left, I can just convey to you that my passion really is for this city. I know many of you don't know me, but I tell you and I tell everybody up here, I have good intentions. My heart is pure. I have a burden for our community, for those who are in need. I have a burden for our children and their future. And I have a selfish motive I haven't admitted to yet. I have 4 sons who I would really like to stay living in Lynchburg, get a job, marry their wives here, and raise my grandbabies here. So selfishly, that's another reason that we're here, and I would love to see the success of our city.
Thanks. Mr. Wright, would you like to ask a candidate a question?
I actually like very much what Ms. Reed just said. I think that to the extent that we can make more time available for community questions, we should.
How about this? Instead of going through all of you one by one, with just a show of your quiet hand, do any of you have a question for a fellow candidate? Mr. Virgil.
I hate to put this specific candidate on the spot, but Mayor Tweedy, how you doing? You all right?
I'm good. Come on with it.
All right. Very candid question. Do you believe that I am qualified to actually serve as councilman here in the city of Lynchburg, and if so, why?
I believe that everyone who puts their name in the hat, just like I did at the beginning in 2014, has the opportunity, and if you have the work ethic, I believe that if you have the ability to listen to citizens and to see from all aspects and angles and then take the information and make it conducive to a decision, and then stand in front of people and say that with all the information, truth, transparency that you have, I think you and or anyone else who is willing to bring their name to the hat is able to serve, because we all start with a learning curve. We don't start knowing everything. I'm able to bring what I bring because I study, I read, I've been doing this for 8 years. I have data and details that most people would never dream about. But that means some things are not for everybody to know, because we have to keep a community safe and moving forward. So integrity matters. And when you go to the polls, make sure you understand that.
Dr. Tweedy, I believe you also indicated that you had a question for a fellow candidate.
Yeah. I believe I have two question for two candidates. It's one
Let's start with
question.
one.
It's one question. They can answer. Decide who. This is for Ms. Reed and Mr. Taylor. I believe in an equitable, diverse Lynchburg. I believe in an inclusive Lynchburg. Do you agree with your ticket running mate, Mr. Mischens, and his opinions on the LGBTQ+ community?
Mr. Taylor, would you like to lead off that answer?
First of all, people's lifestyle is personal. If you got a community that want to live any kind of way, I'm a Christian, and I just don't agree with everything. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Reed?
I'm a Christian as well. And I believe that I'm called to love my neighbor as I love myself. I have 4 sons who have all different types of friends. I have one who's a vocal performance major, who's a brilliant musician and actor, and he has all types of friends, and they're all welcome in my home. And I have no intention of not representing fairly and equally every single person in the city, because everyone in the city is my neighbor that I've been called to love.
Does anybody else have a question for a fellow candidate? Mr. Earl?
I do. This is for any of the Republican slate that I'd like to answer. The Republican members on council currently have voted time and time again to defund the public schools. If elected, would you choose to do the same?
Do I have a volunteer to answer?
I don't think that they've voted to defund the public schools. They have voted not to continue to provide more funding and more funding every time the school board has come and asked for more funding. And even in some of those years, some of that funding was actually turned back in to Lynchburg, the city of Lynchburg. So I think that the Republican members that are currently on city council want to hold the school board accountable for your tax dollars and not just continue taking your money and spending it.
Ms. Reed or Mr. Taylor?
I think my concern is just how we're spending the money. As long as I've had children in school, I've been paying for their supplies and contributing to classroom supplies for kids that didn't have supplies themselves or towards the teachers. I've had teachers that are just such gifts who have spent money out of their pocket every single year I've had a child in school. I was a substitute teacher for 2 years, and oh my goodness, that opens your eyes to how special our teachers are. So again, going back to where we're spending the money and how we're spending the money is my biggest concern. I want to make sure that our classrooms are properly funded, our teachers are well paid, and that our children are getting the best education they can get with the money that us as taxpayers pay into the system.
Mr. Taylor or Mr. Mischens, do either of you have a question?
I think we have a well-funded school system, but at the same time, we have lost somewhat in the neighborhood of 2,000 students. So where do that money go? That we've lost students. Are we still paying the same amount to the school system, even though we're losing? We lost 2,000 children.
Is your question directed at anybody?
No,
Okay.
but anybody can answer it.
I will, if I can.
Sure.
In 2016 equals 8,200 students in LCS. To this question of losing thousands of students over the past years, in 2021, there were 7,666 students. As of August 22, 7,803, which is 397 or 5% less than 2016. Look at the data, everyone. Don't just take the soundbite of thousands being lost. Any system can say they lost students over a period of years. LCS is an urban, not rural school district. We have challenges like everyone else. Our economically disadvantaged students in Lynchburg City Schools is 62%. 62%. No one wants to deal with the data, but we want to throw sound bites out there. But let me tell you the success of our schools. Between fiscal year 21 and 22, white students' pass rate for math increased 12 percentage points in the state and increased 12 percentage points in LCS for the same subgroup. Between fiscal year 21 and 22, black students' pass rate for math increased 15 percentage points in the state, 18 percentage
Tweedy,
points in
that's your
LCS for the
time.
same group. Get your data, know the facts.
Would you like to respond?
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Wright, did you want to respond?
Well, I just want to be very quick on the question of school funding. I mean, look, the cost per pupil has gone up, but when you take into account inflation, we're actually spending for each student the same amount that we were spending back in like 2009 and 2008. Costs go up. Have we seen our gas bill? Costs go up. And so City Council has tried to keep pace with the rise in costs, but we're still, and I agree, I'm really glad to hear Ms. Reed say it, I agree, we need to have better paid teachers, we need to have adequately funded schools, and when I say adequate, that means that every child has opportunity. And it means, by the way, city schools, we gotta take everybody, all right? Doesn't matter the need of the student, we have to accept them, and we should, but that also then means we have a higher burden than private schools do.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, because this is a statistic of thousands that just kind of weighs on me, and I actually have the numbers. So, since 2008, the 2009 school year, we only have 801 fewer students, and we have 149 less staff members. So, with all these statistics combined, this narrative of a bloated administrative staff, which is only 6% of the LCS budget and has only been raised 1% since 2016. It's fear tactics and just a tall tale.
Well, that ends the candidates questioning candidates portion of the evening.
Never mind. We're good.
All good?
Thank you.
Okay, so now it is time for you all to give us your final remarks. You have 1 minute, 2 minutes. You have a 2-minute timer. Since we started with you, shall we start with you for our closing remarks?
That works for me.
Okay.
Thank you. You guys have a choice on November 8th. It begins on September 23rd, I believe, with early voting on who's going to lead your city moving forward. What I challenge you to look at is the results. I challenge you to look at how is your life today versus how it was 4 years ago. Do you have more money in your savings account, more money in your wallet? How are your kids doing in school? How is the safety in your neighborhood? How's the crime in your neighborhood? I know 4 to 6 years ago, I didn't have to worry about that in my neighborhood. But last year, one of my neighbors had his car stolen out of his driveway. Okay? So that has changed. So I challenge you to look at that. And if your results aren't any better than they were 4 years ago, it's time for new leadership. And that's what I challenge you to look at and examine. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to our message. And I ask you for your vote on November 8th.
Mr. Wright, before you speak.
Yes, ma'am.
All of the dates for elections are all in this handy-dandy voters guide. It has all of your dates for early voting and where you can vote. I highly recommend you pick one up on your way out tonight.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm so sorry for interrupting you. Please continue, Mr.
No,
Wright.
that's fine. That's fine. I'll actually try to be really brief and just offer thanks to each of you for being here this evening, for giving us, the candidates, an opportunity to talk with you this evening, to the League of Women Voters for organizing this so expertly, for keeping us on task with the colors and the questions. So thank you all very much for that. I mean, I agree that this is a really important election for Lynchburg. November 8th is a really important day, though, as my friend here mentioned, early voting does start on September 23rd, so do go vote early at Kemper Street Station if you want to. But this is a really important election. It's about the future of Lynchburg. And as I mentioned at the start, there is I think, real pressure to make Lynchburg politics national, to fight our culture wars here in City Hall, which would distract us from what really matters to folks, which is the high quality of life that we offer here in Lynchburg. But that high quality of life needs maintenance. It needs maintenance in our public safety, in our public schools, in our infrastructure, in our roads, our water, right? We have an opportunity here, I think, in the coming decades to really make Lynchburg extraordinary, beyond what it already is. And every election is important, but this one is especially important because this next 10 years, I think, is really going to set the stage for what the next 50 years of Lynchburg is going to look like. And to me, it's about making smart, strategic investments in our schools, in our public safety, and in our economy, which we are blessed to have a really diverse, exciting, dynamic economy, but it needs fostering. So I'm really excited to be running, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Virgil.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out here and just taking this time and listen. I think the biggest thing for me is in my time here in the city, especially within the past year or so, just listening to the various individuals and how concerned they are to the point of Mr. Wright, how national politics are really polarizing and how the way that this specific council is drafted is to specifically be apolitical and just focused on the issues that really matter here in the city. And for that reason, that's why I made sure that from the very beginning that there was going to be no association or affiliation with either party, and that we were going to run as true independents all the way through. And that has been our commitment then, and that is our commitment now, because I believe that here in this specific chamber, we need to ensure that there is indeed an independent here that's listening, that has relationships on all corners of the city, and that is prepared to be able to come forward with that level of perspective and collaboration to be able to do so. My 14 years of service here in the city has qualified me to be able to serve well, and I am excited about being able to continue to run this race, and I look for your support come September the 23rd when everything opens up early. Get to it. October the 17th is the deadline for you to update all of your registration information, and November the 8th is the day for everybody else to show up and allow their voice to be heard. Listen, Lynchburg, let's get loud and allow ourselves to be heard this time around. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Tweedy.
Thank you. I've just been doing the work. You can't have a great community without doing the work. The commitment's there, the time management, the information. I have the passion. I am passionate. People say I'm tough and I fight, but it's passion. Because I believe in this city. I believe in every citizen. I believe we can be the city on a hill that people look to as the beacon for how to operate a city and grow our communities. The difference is I've been in the trenches. So I understand everybody at all levels. I understand how to communicate. I understand how to knock on their door. I understand how to listen. I do listen. I wouldn't know this if I hadn't listened. But I've put the time in to be able to move Lynchburg forward. Leading Lynchburg forward is my goal. This is a comeback. The pandemic is 100 years. We got to come back stronger. And I believe I have the grit to get us there. I'm not a soundbite, I'm proven. If you don't pit city services against each other, that's what we don't do and won't do, or employees. I don't put city services, I don't pit them against our citizens. We believe all of our citizens and neighborhoods deserve investment. That's what helps us move forward. Engaging in our communities. Everyone needs a sidewalk to somewhere. New leadership, soft on crime. My opponents have been endorsed by someone who's going to not prosecute all the kind. Let's look at all levels of this public safety and violence issue. We have to hold people accountable. We have to hold our households accountable. We have to hold our neighborhoods accountable. We have to hold our leaders accountable, but it's all a collaborative effort. And I'm willing to fight for you November 8th and beyond. Let's go.
Mr. Taylor.
My desire is to represent all the citizens of Lynchburg. I live in a neighborhood where, as I said before, the people ask me all the time, who is my representative? Who represents me on city council? Mr. Taylor, could you come and help us? Can we elect you to represent us on city council? I have people throughout all Lynchburg, not just White Rock Hill, not just James Crossing. I go there too, my brother. All over the city, I have people that want Larry Taylor to represent them on city council. Lord willing, I will be elected and represent the people of Lynchburg of all stripes. It don't matter. I'm going to represent you to the fullest of my ability. And as Ms. Tweedy said, she didn't know everything when she came here. I'm not saying that I know everything, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to support the city wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reed.
So I'm looking around the audience and I see a lot of women, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I got to know a few of you this summer when I was going to all the Enough rallies through the city. I think I missed one of them, but and that was really cool to see y'all there helping get people registered to vote. So thank you for what you do. As women, as mothers, as daughters, what I see in our city are what all of us as mothers see when we see other people's children. Once you have children, everybody's children become your children, right? So as I've gone around the city the last couple of years, and definitely the last 4 to 6 months, I'm looking at it through a mother's eyes for the future of our city, for what our children can be. I'm also looking through it through the lens of a daughter who has aging parents and what I want for them. And then I'm looking through the lens of a wife who's 47, who has a 50-year-old husband, who has growing baby adult children, and what I want for them. And then I talk to people door to door to door to door. And unfortunately, what I'm finding is that everybody doesn't feel heard. They don't all feel represented. They don't all feel that they have been fought for like they've been promised. And so I would like to come to the table, and I would like to be able to say, I hear you, and I want to help you. And like Larry said, we don't know everything. Nobody up here knows everything. We know a lot, but the people are who educate us. The most I've learned from getting out into the community and hearing the needs of our community. And so my heart, like I said, is burdened to help our homeless population, our families in need, our foster care system, the kids in school, and our public safety departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Earl.
Thank you. I first got into this race because of my children. Arden, who's 6 years old, and Lona, who's 1.5. Arden goes to Paul Monroe. And what first led me into politics was that, like I mentioned before, the school's facilities report. I thought to myself, wow, there's a lot of big decisions that need to be made, and we need calm, clear, and collaborative heads inside that room when it happens. And it's not just for my kid, it's for all the children of Lynchburg. And all the children of Lynchburg that aren't even in school yet, like my daughter Lona. I think I can bring a collaborative voice to council, and I feel as if being in the room and having someone that is thinking about not just their constituency or their demographic, but every citizen of Lynchburg is something that I can bring to the table. Thank you. Oh, wait, hold on. Vote early and vote Earl.
Well, thank you to all of our candidates. I'd like to introduce Ms. Jennifer Woofter, who will give our final closing remarks.
That makes it sound very official. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you to the candidates for being here in a time when it feels often very difficult to find common ground and to find places where we can hear different viewpoints in the same room. I think the work of the League is more important than ever. As our moderator mentioned, we do have some pamphlets with all of the important dates. I will also mention that we have Fare Free Day on September 29th. You can take any of the city buses, go register to vote, vote early, apply to vote by mail, update your voter registration. Too often, if we look at the statistics, we don't have enough citizens voting. People do not turn out and make their voices known. We only have this chance, well, here in Lynchburg it's every year, but that's the elections only come around once a year. This is an opportunity that we should not pass by. So please make sure that you mark your calendars, pick a time now for when you are going to vote, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, make sure they show up, make your voice heard. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, again, thank you for coming, and thank you for coming as well. Good night.